Hello, Rank Squad, and welcome to Ranks FC. It's your Champions League preview show here on the Ranks YouTube channel. My name is Jack Collins, and I'm joined by the one and only Rank God, Mr. Sam Tai. How you doing, mate?
Hello, very well, thank you. Very well, ready for day two of the games. Last night was pretty good. Lots of drama, wasn't there? Milan-Napoli was pretty special, actually. So hoping that one of the two games tonight lives up to that billing. Nothing quite as close or finely poised is there tonight. Feels like there are two very clear favourites, but you never know.
You do never know. I kind of feel like the Champions League quarterfinals have lacked jeopardy thus far. There was a little bit at the end of Milan-Napoli, sure, but not really. It was about approximately a minute of jeopardy where we thought we might get a turnaround. It has felt like there wasn't much yesterday. Obviously, Chelsea played okay, but Real Madrid just kind of dispatched them. And then after that, you kind of look at it and going, well, we're expecting Milan-Napoli to throw up fireworks. It was a good game, but I don't think it threw up jeopardy and fireworks. And I'm kind of struggling to find where it's going to come from tonight either. So there is that. There is that to be aware of. But there's still two good games between four good teams, two excellent teams and two decent teams left to see tonight. So we're going to start with Manchester City playing Bayern Munich. It's not necessarily going to be the game that we were all hoping for. I mean, the first leg was the blockbuster, Sam, in many ways, because it gave us a result that no one was expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd have been a very bold and brave person to go into that first leg and suggest that City, would walk out of it with a 3-goal advantage, with a clean sheet, having quite literally trounced Bayern basically by the full-time whistle. They'd passed their way around them, they'd pressed them into hell, and Bayern looked dizzy, didn't they? They looked dizzy and confused. And obviously, we've seen off the back of it, there was a dispute in the dressing room, and as reports suggest, Sadio Mane ended up punching Leroy Sané and has now been fined, 350,000 euros for doing so. And there's talk of, I think especially the German players in the dressing room sort of distancing themselves from Sadio Mane, i.e. picking sides. When there's been a rift, obviously you are probably going to fall one way or the other. Sané is having been there a longer time and being German, I guess, will have more friends. And none of this really lay the foundations for an epic comeback. But it's Bayern Munich. It's the Champions League. They've got some of the greatest players, and we'll have to see. City, it's not like they haven't collapsed from a strong position in the Champions League before. Obviously, we're not expecting it, but again, you can never really rule it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the manner of dominance in this first leg was something to behold. So let's put it up, shall we? And let's have a look at the XG timeline. This is pretty stunning, to be perfectly honest with you.
Got out of hand, didn't it? Got out of hand, second half. And we're going to come on to one of the key elements here in a moment with another diagram, but just take note of how quickly it escalates in that second half. And when we get to just shy of the 60-minute mark, that's really important. And we'll come back to it in a moment. But yes, by the end, Bayern were dizzy and they just wanted that game to end. Jan Sommer's making save after save after save. He made a couple of either mistakes or what was very close to being a mistake, and was by no means perfect, but by the end of the game, quite clearly looks like Bayern Munich's best player, because he was the reason that this wasn't 5 or 6. He kept it down to 3. He was everywhere, all over the goal line. Fantastic performance overall in terms of shot stopping. But yeah, this got really out of hand really fast, and it's around that 60-minute mark that it happens. And we have a Jack Grealish defensive action areas map to show you, which I don't think he's really where I expected to be. Analysing the key parts of this game and as to where it went so right for City and so wrong for Bayern. But this actually is the key part. So Pep essentially tweaks the way his team are pressing in the second half, maybe 10, 15 minutes in, and Grealish starts to press Upamecano in a way that he just cannot handle. And you can see here, this is obviously him moving from left to right. So he's attacking towards the right-hand side. He's playing left wing. These are all of his duels and his tackles and his interceptions and all that stuff. This is also where Upamecano is playing right centre-back. And he's having immense trouble with Grealish here. Grealish is chasing him and harrying him and forcing him into difficult positions. He's pressuring his passes. And Upamecano starts doing really weird stuff, really stupid stuff. Rather than just kick it long, which I know, everyone tries to be better than that. And I appreciate it. And these are top teams and these are top players. But rather than just, when he's in a bit of a bind, just maybe lump it upfield, he still tries to play his way out of trouble. And there's a goal that is a result of him trying to dribble past Grealish, having been caught. He gets tackled. It's in the back of the net like 5-6 seconds later. So Bayern need a response to this. Like, first and foremost, in terms of building out from the back, which is obviously their bread and butter, they'll do it. They'll play short. They need to be able to overcome Manchester City's press, because they were not able to do that in the first leg, and it led to their immediate downfall. And that's why they're in the hole they're in. They were too stubborn to try something different in the second half, or they weren't prepared for it. Either way, I hope they have a better solution tonight, mate. Otherwise, they're going to have the same problems.
Yeah, it didn't feel like there was much to kind of play with, I think, in many ways. And Bayern just kind of looked a bit lost. I'm going to bounce back off the grass for a minute so that we can answer some questions from Elijah, who says, "Hey, fellas, if you're a City fan, you can send a bottling it again. Of course, being a Dortmund fan, I'd love to see Bayern get rattled." He said also, Fonzie's been kind of mid all season. These are the questions that we are dealing with. I think there has to be some residual worry, right, from last season, because that was an unprecedented collapse from City's perspective. Then again, it was also Real Madrid. These things can happen. Real Madrid are particularly impressive in these kind of zones.
Yes, of course. And Bayern, traditionally, very impressive in the Champions League, and traditionally very impressive at home. Like, obviously, just very, very good at home. So, yeah, there's a big difference between the old home crowd and the away crowd, isn't there? Particularly at these levels. And again, we can't really rule this out for Manchester City. We cannot say with absolute certainty that they are going to be fine tonight. I don't think that they're going to trip up. I don't think that's going to happen. But I've learned from the other week, so I'm not going to be so strong as to say it cannot happen. And for City, with their previous history, with what happened last year, and with Bayern's pedigree, sure, and I'm sure Dortmund fans would absolutely love to see it. But at 2-0, I'd be like, okay. But 3, it's just one goal too many, isn't it?
It feels like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It feels like it. I mean, look, if someone's going to turn this around, maybe as an old City boy, but Leroy Sané didn't have a particularly good time of it last week, and I know you wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have a particularly good time of it, and yet he was still probably the most impactful attacker that Bayern Munich had on the pitch. Musiala didn't have a particularly good game. I thought he was really quite quiet, actually. And Gnabry, played up front.
Musiala was okay first half. He just drifted out of it in the second, but so did almost everybody else.
And Gnabry never really got a foothold in the game at all. Like, he was playing up front in a 4-2-3-1, and he was kind of stretching and moving, fine, but never really managed to impact the game. And Bayern never wanted to play in behind and utilize any speed that he might have in behind. They never wanted to do that. They wanted to play short and build up through midfield. So what that left them with was the best route to goal somehow was Leroy Sané shooting from these locations. And let's give him his credit. He had Ederson scrambling across his goal a few times. Like, he was whipping him left-footed across the face, and they were curling just wide of Ederson's right-hand post. He wasn't miles off. But this, again, I said to you earlier, like, they need to have a better solution for building up play in the first phase. They also need a better solution for creating goal-scoring chances than let's watch Leroy Sané unleash 6 shots from distance. Again, it needs to be better. They need to get the ball to him in a better position, in a better way, via a better method. And they need to do a lot better getting into City's box and breaking them down. Now, look, part of this is that City were so good on the night. We sat here after the game on the Thursday. We did the Champions League wrap-up show. We were like, Ake was perfect. Coman couldn't get a yard. John Stones was unbelievable, both in midfield and last-ditch tackling. Ruben Dias, 2 huge blocks, all part of it. City played their part. But we're talking about a Bayern Munich attack with these level of players. You've got to come up with something better than this.
Yeah. I mean, this is it. Elijah says he wasn't far off from those shots, to be fair. And that is true. But it shouldn't be your main plan of attack if you are Bayern Munich, as you say. Let's move on to the predicted lineups, because we've got a question here from Doug who says, question is, does Pep rotate ready for the mighty Sheffield United? Which is a fair question. Obviously City play at Wembley this weekend against the Blades, who look set to rejoin the Premier League at the end of this season. It's looking good from a Sheffield United perspective. But I can't see all that much rotation, if I'm perfectly honest, Sam. I think this is one where Pep, if Pep rotates here, he's going to be accused of tinkering when he doesn't need to tinker again, isn't he?
100%, yeah. If we're slightly, mildly, even remotely concerned about City, having a tough time of it tonight and things may be swinging back into the balance, the last thing that needs to happen here is for City to start planning for the weekend. And I don't think Pep will do that. Not a chance. I'm pretty sure this is the 11 we're going to see, unless there's an injury. Obviously, this has been a pretty stable 11. The only difference really has been Bernardo or Mahrez, depending on the game. But Bernardo was amazing in the first leg. He ran rings around Fonzie. Ran rings around him. I think nutmegged him twice. Absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, they're going to go to the Allianz tonight, and I'm pretty sure they're going to look exactly like that. And then for Bayern, so what have WhoScored projected here? They've basically said that Upamecano was so bad in the first leg that he won't get to play the second one. That kicks Pavard inside and puts Cancelo there at right back as a starter against his parent club. And there's still no room for Thomas Muller in this projected 11. I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, you and Samuel Hood both. He says, I want to see Muller start tonight. And I imagine that the two of you won't be the only ones. And there'll be a lot of those coming from Bavaria who would want to see Thomas Muller start in a big game this season.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have to appreciate that he hasn't been in the best form recently. Last few months, it's not like we're watching sparkling prime Thomas Muller. Absolutely accept that. But I do just wonder here if Thomas Muller would need to work his way into this team. The question is how and where. You're not dropping Musiala. Don't think you're dropping Sané. So some kind of strange upfront role with Gnabry. I know that Muller's not that comfortable with that. He said that he doesn't really like doing that sort of thing. Or maybe it's Coman, who was so ineffectual in the first leg, despite having those the pace and the ability to stretch the pitch widthways and the really important qualities. If he can't get any space against Nathan Ake, he is useless. So is that maybe where you make the change? I don't know. I still think it'd be a bit bold to drop Upamecano, though. I know he was rubbish, but he's still a pretty damn important player when it comes to it.
Yeah, I wonder if that is more to do with the fact that he might just feel the need to get Cancelo in here. And I don't necessarily mean that in terms of Cancelo's gone to Bayern and set the world on fire. I just think him being booed and the idea of him having a point to prove against City might just mean he gets dropped in for this one. And obviously Pavard was okay. He wasn't great, but he did okay. Upamecano was worse. So it's quite strange. I mean, Cat Guy says Upamecano does not deserve all the criticism that came his way for one horrendous game against City. They can do it to anyone, i.e. Varane in the pink Madrid. Yeah, 100%. This is a completely fair point. I just think the worry in terms of Upamecano wasn't that he played badly. As you say, Cat Guy, that can happen to anybody. It's the idea that he kind of just collapsed. And that's the worry, because City will now be like, well, obviously do that again. But if you have Grealish there and you're like, we'll obviously just press him loads from the very get-go, and there's a worry of just having the same things happen again. Now, people can redeem themselves 100%, loads of things around this, but I just think that maybe it's best to take him out of the limelight when you have those kind of games sometimes.
It all depends on how he's feeling and what Thomas Tuchel's read is on his mentality heading into the game. I mean, you're right. First of all, Cat Guy is spot on. And I do remember Varane absolutely crumbling against City a couple of years ago. It was during lockdown. Gabi Jesus robbed him in his own box and created a goal. And it was really quite stunning. It happens to the best of us. And then your point is also extremely valid. It wasn't that he played badly. It's that he was having an actual inbuilt crisis on the pitch that he could not recover from. A true spiraling, the likes of which you rarely see. Now we're a week on. Is he all right? This man has played in World Cup finals. He's very experienced for his age. He's very, very talented. We'll have to see. Only Thomas Tuchel knows the answer to this question, and only he can really make the right call.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, we'll finish off on this game with one from Doug, who says, someone who's genuinely bought into the City treble hype. I don't want it, but tonight, if Bayern get that early goal, this genuinely could test this City mentality. That's the last hurdle to their success. I suppose it depends what you mean by mentality, would be my question on this one. We've seen City reel off 14 wins in a row to secure a Premier League title. If that's not a sign of strong mentality, I'm not 100% sure what is. I think more than that, it's a test of how City can play in different game states. That would be my question of this City side. How do they cope when the heat's on and someone turns it up to chaos 11? And we know that if they do get through tonight, which we're expecting them to, they're going to come up against Real Madrid. And the way that Real Madrid will look at trying to beat this City side is trying to turn the game up to chaos state 11 for long periods, because they know that City aren't good at dealing with that situation. Now, the question is, have Bayern got the capability to do that? I mean, in terms of technicality, yes. But under Tuchel, are Bayern going to go full chaos state? Because I would suggest maybe not.
They've got the tools for it. You're right. Tactically, they probably wouldn't do that under Tuchel. But if he just kind of goes, listen, Kimmich, Goretzka, I need you to start stomping about, mate. And they've got the physicality and they've got the grit in midfield to do that. And they've got the speed in attack, so that if the game starts to break open a little bit, then yes, they've got the tools. And if there is, an ultimate chaos player, it's surely Thomas Müller, who just thrives off the dysfunction of anything and everyone around him. So the ingredients are there, but with a 3-goal cushion and City now on this renewed sense and streak of controlling every element of every game and keeping a lid on things, and they're so good at it, particularly in this newer shape, it's hard to see, isn't it? It's hard to see.
Yeah, Zach references this. He says, what can Bayern do to counter this new hybrid 6 role that Stones is excelling in? It seems they have the pace to do in transition, but surely that isn't enough. I mean, I think every manager in world football is asking the same thing.
Yeah.
Can anyone deal with this, and how do you do with it? And the fact that Pep has managed to make this happen again. It's a WM, right? It's Herbert Chapman's 1930s formation out of like the first games that were ever played with an actual formation. This is not new as an idea. What's new is the way that Pep's doing it. And the fact is, and one of those things, and there were some brilliant articles written about this week. The idea that nothing new happens in football is silly, but the reinvention of different things is very, very important. And actually, I think that what Pep's done here in reinvention of this system, and the fact that you can't even tell if Stones is going to drop in at right back out of possession, or he's going to drop in at centre back, and Akanji's going to drop in at right back, because they have differing ways to deal with differing opponents. And if the pace in transition is killing them, you'd imagine that Stones starts to file out wide a little bit and leaves Akanji a bit more room to try and deal with that through the centre. And they can adapt to different situations. This is why this is so impressive, because it's so fluid and so versatile.
It is, yeah. And I don't have the answer to this question, Zach, and I don't think anybody in football has the answer right now. So I don't feel ashamed of that. I'm waiting very patiently for a manager to show me how to combat this. And I'm sure Pep is also wondering who's going to come up with it first. And there's just something about this, like, this tactical wrinkle that he's produced. And you're right, he's flipping the pages of history, and he's taking things out and modernizing them, which is what he's always done in the last 15 years. That is basically all he has ever done, is modernize historic tactics and approaches, and fair play to him. He's done it now and has really got it cooking at this extremely late stage of the season. I would say that, generally speaking, novel tactical approaches in terms of reaction time in football, 20 games minimum until somebody truly figures it out. There aren't 20 games left. There just aren't. Like, he's produced this wrinkle that seems unbeatable, and there's not enough time. It's just not enough time for people to figure this out and get and clock onto it. It's fascinating, and it might be the difference.
Indeed. Right, let's flip over to the other game, where to host Benfica with a 2-0 lead. Now, Sam, we thought this one would go differently.
We did
last week, into a bottom of your ranking in terms of which teams would go where. This game wasn't a 2-0 in terms of how it played out. That's probably worth pointing out. But Inter have always been, under Inzaghi, a very, very good cup side. And they showed that again here. They dealt with that initial pressure from Benfica, and you can see this in the graph. Look how quickly Benfica started to go off the mark, 15-30 minute period where they really did sort of seize the game, and Inter basically just flatlined till half-time. And after half-time, they dug in, they got their heels in, and they started to foray forward. And actually, as soon as the first goal went in, the game opened up nicely, and Inter were able to kind of move into the spaces that they needed to move into in transition. And suddenly it looked very, very harem-scarum from Benfica.
I mean, so that is disgraceful. In terms of like the first 50 minutes, that looks like two shots that went nowhere near the goal, which is pretty poor. But obviously, then they get the big chance there, and then it's a penalty late on, isn't it? That's a big spike in the XG. And apart from that, there isn't too much. You feel sorry for the team with the red line here, generally speaking. Across football, whenever this situation happens, you feel a bit sorry for them. 2-0 looks pretty comprehensive, but look at the way it panned out. Not really for them. And I mean, my question to you here, because you were the one that was in charge of this game, is once Inter got going, clearly they created chances.
Mm-hmm.
But was that only because the game was so open and in transition that could happen?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay,
yeah.
so can Benfica stop that from happening tonight? Can they stop the game from being played? Because they're 2-0 down, they're going to have to go for it.
Unless they score early, right? If you score early, then you can kind of sit in for a little while and try and actually slow the rhythm of the game down. But until they score, I think this game has to be frantic. Now, you can see though from the idea of this, and obviously Inter do create these chances here towards the end of this graph, that in the frantic chaos, Benfica created chances as well, some big chances, as you can see, just after the goal, a massive chance to equalize. And actually, one that looks kind of almost underrated here is right at the end. Do you see that like kind of vertical spike on the 90-minute on the full timer?
Mm-hmm.
That's Gonzalo Ramos going through an injury time. And I don't think it can be overstated how important that was, that didn't go in. It's a great save, but it's tame as an effort. And actually, you look at it and you think that goal could have been so crucial to the way that this second leg plays out. If that goes in, then Benfica don't have to go hell for leather to begin with. They can continue playing their game. They can try and get the crowd nervy. Fine. The fact that hasn't gone in, I think that this game has to open up, and I think it will suit Inter. And that's my worry from a Benfica perspective. I mean, Elijah does play at this point. Benfica's some key players out. Otamendi was out. There was a couple of others. The right back, Alexander Bar was out. Some of these players are back. Some of them aren't. And so it's still a bit of a mishmash. But it's I don't know if there's enough back here to suggest that this game is going to change in the way that it pans out. And look, there's a couple of things. I did put this in to try and prove something, but it's actually not a particularly useful graph. So I'm going to keep moving quite quickly. But the point I was going to try and make on it, just so you can see, I'll make it bigger.
It looks nice.
Look at the differences between the Club Brugge game. Look at where the left wingers' passes are going, right? And those left wing passes moving into the final third is how Benfica ran riot against Club Brugge. Arsnes was able to sit in that gap, and he was able to feed balls through and make sure that Grimaldo was getting outside him and making a difference. And you see that against against Inter. There's absolutely none of that. This is an easier way to show it, I think, though. You look at the action zones. Oh, that's not what I was trying to do there. You look at the action zones that the Grimaldo got into, and actually where he was defensively active, and look how high he presses up. And we spoke about this. We spoke about the fact that Grimaldo being able to get forward, and anyone who watched our preview for last week's game, we said that the battle was won and lost on this left wing for Benfica and right wing back for Inter. That spot, that battle there was going to be crucial to how this panned out. And what happened was that Grimaldo got penned further back than what he would like to be. He wasn't able to get forward and make sure that Inter weren't able to get out of those areas. And you can see by the fact that he had to do so much tracking back into his own half, as opposed to that Club Brugge game where he was able to run riot on that left wing, how important he is and how much of a harbinger he is for Benfica being in the areas that they want to be in.
Yeah, that's not good. I mean, Grimaldo's greatest strength has never been his defending. Let's put it like that. A wonderful attacking fullback. So get him unleashed in that final third, and you're in a good spot. And obviously stabilize the wing with Arsnes. Fine, perfect. I think do they bother with Arsnes tonight?
Well, let's have a look at him, shall we? Because this is the difference, and part of this is having to deal with Nicolo Barella. Now the lines here are important, right? So his average, he spends time on that left-hand side. Yes, he can track back in. Yes, he can drift in. His average heat map on the right-hand side, that's without the Inter game. this season. And then the Inter game there, you can see the differing role that he's being asked to play here, further back in terms of where his main area is on the left-hand side, but also that middle space where he was just having to track Barella time and time and time again because he was getting free in the middle. Now, there's a lot to kind of look at in that regard, but this is Barella and where Barella was getting the ball and where Barella was causing problems. And obviously you can see those two dots in the box. One of them is obviously the goal. But actually it's this area just outside of it, sort of between the halfway line and the 6-yard box, where he's actually able to make a real difference to the way that Inter get forward. And this is what changes Arsnes's heat map, because he's just time and time again tracking Barella. And so you ask the question, do you bother with Arsnes? I don't know if you can deal with not having him, because actually what he did was, even though Barella was brilliant, he managed to at least stymie some of that attack. And if the game is going to be open and free flowing, I think you need him in there.
And where was Florentino Luis in all this, by the way?
Well, he was just dealing with other people. The other issue, like this is the part of a problem.
So one of my very favorite things in data visualization is a Nico Barella heat map and a Nico Barella touch map. I think he always produces the most beautiful viz. And he's such a strange little player because we all would paint him as, a number 8, a box-to-box midfielder. But he's very much cut from that old Argentinian like Mezzala role, like the half centre mid, half winger. And obviously when you play with your wing backs and then a front two and you've got no winger, it allows your number 8s to kind of push wider into those areas. And Barella is absolutely sensational at just occupying those areas. He's really comfortable moving wide because his crossing is really good. He's really comfortable in the half space. He's really comfortable surging into the box. He's obviously just an absolutely amazing player. But these kind of players are really hard to stop because it's really hard to figure out for a lot of teams who is responsible for this man. It's not always the same player. It can't always be the same player, especially if you're playing a different formation to the opposition.
Yeah,
and he just causes those headaches and he just causes those problems. And was Florentino Luis playing on the right side of the midfield too, and Chiquinho playing on the left?
Well, they sort of were a bit all over the place. Chiquinho was nominally yes, but actually Chiquinho was given that space to kind of get forward, and actually it ended up being more of a 3 at times because Arsnes was spending so much time in midfield that actually Florentino started to drop in and sort of push Chiquinho right to try and get the ball out and actually find those triangles again.
It's unorthodox because I know Luis prefers the right, but I'd consider putting him on Barella here. I really would. Like if Barella's the danger man and he's in form, that's what I would consider doing. And of course, Benfica are going to be helped by the fact that Otamendi can return from suspension anyway. Although he had a bit of a rotter over a weekend, didn't he? It was him that gave away the ball to Chavez. Yeah. So he's not coming in great form anyway. I would really look at this and start to make like specific tweaks. I know Roger Schmidt hasn't really done that. Like his template has been all powerful this season. He hasn't had to change very much. He just rotates a few players here and there. Neres in, Neres out, whatever. He might have to do something here. It might be that the tried and trusted needs to change up a little bit.
Yeah, well, we're not sure. Well, who scored definitely aren't sure.
Well, I mean,
they haven't got Bar back in, which is fine.
If you were putting this together and you were who scored, you would absolutely go with what he's been doing, 100%. Like I don't blame them at all, but I do wonder if there might be a tweak of some description coming. That just looks like their normal 11, which has been brilliant all year.
Yes, I mean it has. The question is, do you, when you're under the cosh, when you're in, a cauldron, which the Giuseppe Meazza will be tonight, where Inter have been bad in the league, and the Champions League form and the cup form has been pretty much all that's kept Inzaghi at a job at points. But people are going to be so hyped; they'll have seen Milan obviously qualify for the semis last week. And, we've seen this, some of the chat. Elijah said, I'm sad that it's looking grim for Benfica, but I'm down for Milan derby semi-final. The fact that this could be the last, ever Davide Maradona at San Siro before it gets knocked down. There's lots of narrative going on everywhere. The fans are going to be right at it tonight. So are you going to throw what is a young Benfica side? Are you going to make changes and throw them into a cauldron? Or are you going to stick to the tried and tested and kind of hope that you can get that early goal and stick to what you've been doing all season? Because I think they're going to do the latter.
Yeah, I mean, I think to be fair, they probably will. I'm not proposing huge changes. I'm just maybe suggesting like Florentino and Chiquinho swap or something, and they do something. Like if Barella killed them in the first leg, don't let it happen in the second leg. There's a certain amount, there's a vein of logic to that, but yeah, I mean, we know that Benfica are going to start fast, like they always try to. There's a great intensity to their play, and the onus really is on them to go out there and grab a goal in the first 15 minutes. With the abolition of the away goals rule, which I want to talk to you about at the end of the show anyway, because I've been talking about it on Twitter today. With the abolition of the away goals rule, they're still in this game. They'd be screwed if this was 2 years ago. But an early goal here, and suddenly everything is in play.
Yeah, I mean, okay, let's talk about it then, because why not now? Why not now?
Sure,
If you
sure.
thoughts about this, please drop them in the comments. But Sam's been talking about the away goals rule on Twitter today.
Yeah, I mean, please, anyone who's watching, drop us a comment and let us know how you feel about this. I was really surprised to see some sentiment today on Twitter, which was negative towards abolishing the away goals rule. Some of it was only semi-serious. Some of it was very serious, though, like a tweet from Carl Anker, who kind of misses the away goals rule. Fair enough, each to their own, not having a go. But a load of replies saying, yeah, taking that away is the worst thing that's happened to football in ages. I was like, I don't think I agree with that at all. I mean, obviously, massive over-exaggeration. But, last night's game, you said at the top of the show, at no point was it frantic, but it was always within reach. Always within reach. 2 years ago, Rafa Leão scores that goal, and this game is finished from the moment that ball hits the back. Oh, well, Giroud scores the goal. My mistake. Can we just give it to Leão? It was clearly his goal.
Feels like it, doesn't it?
Yeah. Giroud scores that goal and the game's over. But we had a whole second half there of Milan having to defend doggedly and Napoli pushing because they knew one goal and we are back in with a shout here, back in with a shout. So I think that over the last couple of years, as we've got rid of the away goals, I think it's had a dramatically good effect on the balance of these games and keeping them from getting too far out of whack. But I was just a bit surprised earlier to see some sentiment that did not match my feelings. I thought we all agreed. We do not.
At the time, I was pretty anti the abolition of the away goals rule. I will say that. But actually, since it's come in, I've been pleasantly surprised with how it's worked out. I thought it was going to mean that teams in the first leg would go away from home and just sit in. That was my thoughts on the process. But I think that generally towards the end of two-legged ties, it has provided for more entertaining games. And definitely did last year, although I hark back to what I said at the top, the Champions League has really lacked jeopardy this season. And it's about time that someone fires them in. Maybe it will be Benfica. And I just wanted to touch on this from Burkett, who says, I'll just have a comment. Today is 1904. 1904, obviously the year that SL Benfica were founded. And today, he says, will be the day for SLB to reach the stars. I like it. I like the optimism. And I do think that it's definitely the best chance we've got here of a comeback. Now, maybe I'll be saying that with egg on my face, looking back at this in 2 hours' time, and everyone's going to be going absolutely mad. But yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it goes. And I think Benfica do stand the best chance, and the abolition of the away goals rule definitely helps in that.
Yeah. Do you think they'll do it? Do you think they can?
They score in the first half, anything's on the table. If they don't score in the first half, I can't see it. It's a massive cop-out answer, isn't it? But
of course, but it's tough. I mean, we're talking about it's well against the odds. I've got a funny feeling they'll do it, and they'll get back to 2-0 and 2-2. And I shouldn't have that feeling, and it's probably because I keep putting Inter down because I watch them and I just think they're garbage. But I have to be able to separate the Champions League night from losing to Monza, stuff like that.
Yeah,
I'm struggling to do that. Like most of the time when I watch Inter, they're not very good. So I just feel like it's still in play for Benfica. I think the City one's done. That's fine. But yeah, I've got this feeling. And I had a feeling yesterday that my feeling was wrong yesterday, wasn't it, on Napoli?
To be fair, your feeling wasn't miles wrong.
It wasn't miles
wrong. If Napoli could finish their dinner, then maybe we'll be having a different conversation, but we are not, alas. It is what it is. It is what it is. Yes, it was very interesting tonight. And I think that we always talk about double screening. I feel like one of these games has more jeopardy than the other, and it is this Inter Benfica game. But I will be double screening. Cat Guy did put how would away goals work if Milan and Inter were in the semis. Well, it's two
That's why they
different
got rid of it.
stadiums, isn't it? It's the San Siro and the Giuseppe Meazza. It's very important to remember that they're called different things and the two different teams are playing at them, despite it being literally the same building. All very exciting. Right, on that, I think it's probably time for us to call it a day. And all that's left for me to do is say thank you very much to Mr. Sam Sider-Rancor. Thank you, mate.
Nice one, mate. And I'll see you later for the review.
Indeed. I've been Jack Collins. We'll be back later on here, not live, but we're going to record a review show straight after these games. And that will be on YouTube later tonight. It will also be on the podcast channel. And then tomorrow there will be UE Ultras on here as early as I can get it live. I know Doug asked about this. As early as I can get it out there, I will have it on here for you, Doug, talking about all 8 of the Europa League and Europa Conference League games that we have on tomorrow. So that's very exciting. We will see you very then. We'll see you then. We'll see you very then. We'll very much see you then. We'll see you whenever we see you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you shortly.